You gotta kind of be prepared to kind of like mark your territory. You're probably not the only one who wants to be looking in that box at that point in time. I'll just say it was disappointing to someone else. G'day, I'm Johanna of Passive Royal, and today I'm going to show you my adventure to the Sydney Destash Market. One more? Okay. So every so often, Sydney has a Destash Market, which is orientated at people who either have a massive, large stash that they no longer need. They can purchase a stall and have the opportunity to sell anything that they don't want anymore. Or some of them can be like those eBay sellers who collect vintage patterns, fabrics, and notions. And they can also have a stall and sell at this event. The market was held at Petersham Town Hall in Sydney's Inner West, which is a relatively, central place to have an event like this. It wasn't as busy. I think it's happened in Newtown before, like not last year, but a few years ago. I think my mum and I just went for coffee one time in Newtown just to have a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon out. And we just happened to find the Sydney Destash Market open. I got some fabric then. So I was really excited to go again with a bit more intent and try and get there a bit earlier to see if there were any really good finds. I went to the market with my bestie Emma, who is also known as Woodvale Lane on YouTube. She is more into the crochet realm, so if that's you, go check her out. And we were really surprised to find that when we got there around 11, it opened at 10, that there was a line. There was a decent line, and lines were going around both sides of the block, which was crazy. Not completely around the block, but they were at least 150, 200 meters long on either side, which was quite surprising for, just like a knick-knack vintage, I got a lot of fabric type market at a town hall. How long has it been since we've been to a town hall? Anyway, so that was kind of exciting. It was cool. It was also a bit like, oh dang, there's gonna be some competition in here. It was also a $2 entry fee, which is kind of good because it means like, it's a bit of a filter pass on people coming in. But I also suppose that it enables the organizers, one, to get paid for their time and effort organizing the event, and two, to make it more accessible for more events like this to happen in the future, and perhaps the location be upgraded, which we will get to a bit later in the video. So we waited in line for about, I want to say 20 minutes, maybe not 20 minutes, but in the hot Australian sun, it felt longer than it needed to be. Thank goodness I did have my sunscreen, and I always carry my hat, so I had that on and I was prepped and ready. Another thing to note is that when you go to these things, at least in Sydney, at least somewhere where it's hot, take a backpack. One, you're probably gonna buy something, but two, it's a big day. You're gonna be walking around. You need a hat, you need water. You need water. Okay, great. So that was me. And like another thing going to these things is that because it's going to be a lot of crafters and stuff, you want to wear your me-made items, but it was too hot. It was way too hot. I know Emma and I we were going to have a big shopping day, so we were going to be going around town, having fun. So I needed walking shoes, which, cuts out a lot of my me-made outfits because they're a bit more vintage and like cutesy inspired. So wearing a pair of runners with some of those, they just weren't the look, not the look for me. Others, you do as you wish. And two, it was just gonna be so hot. I needed something that was practical, wearable, I could sweat in, because that's what was gonna happen. And it did. It was pretty hot. It was like 20, it said it was supposed to be 29 degrees Celsius, but I'm pretty sure it felt at least like 32, 33. But anyway, so we waited in line for a bit. We got to the front door, $2 entry fee. They were like stashed with coins and change, so they were pretty easy to break any notes that you had, so that was easy. It was cash. I don't think that there was an FPOS option, but as soon as you walk in, it was literally club, another club, stall, stall, stall. It was jam-packed in there. Not only was it jam-packed for the amount of people in there, but it was jam-packed with stall holders. Should the event have been like a fire hazard? Yes. The event was definitely probably a fire hazard, and they were at max capacity. When we were going in, they actually had someone counting the number of people going in and the number of people coming out. So the reason that the line was so long is that people could only go in once people came out. So 2 out means 2 in, 3 out means 3 in. So it was managed in that way. They did try their best. It was pretty hard to move, pretty hard to like see beyond like your little reachable bubble. But it was exciting to see that many people excited and, you know, in person, crazy, social, in Sydney. So that was great. One of the things that I forgot, like it didn't even cross my mind, because I was just like, fabric de-stash market. I was so one-track minded. I have so much fabric that I don't really need anymore. So I was more so going, one, just to see what it was like, maybe meet some new crafters. If there was something very vintage special, I especially like the 1960s and 1970s funky prints. So if there's anything that caught my eye, I was willing, I had some cash to splash. I was willing to do that. While there were some nice things, there wasn't anything that really like pushed me to purchase, and everything was really expensive. It was kind of like how op shops now, they've definitely adjusted to inflation, but also adjusted to, you know, people buying and then reselling online, which is a bit like you know anyway. So things were definitely expensive, and look, you can kind of like validate it. People have gone to the time, effort to curate, find, locate, purchase, manage, set up their store. There's been a whole process behind them getting there that day, the store holder, but also the fabric and the selection of fabrics getting there that day. So of course there's a cost, it's the economy, sure. But everything that I kind of came across was too expensive for how much I might have wanted it. So nothing kind of swayed me. However, something that I forgot completely that was gonna be there is knitting patterns. And I love knitting patterns. I'm not sure if I've said it before, but I like am a massive collector of vintage knitting patterns. I have a whole, like that's what's kind of like in these folders and binders over here. I have heaps more all around the house. But I forgot that there would be vintage knitting patterns at this event, and boy, was I pleasantly surprised. And remember how I said I had cash to splash? Cash was splashed. It was great. I actually was really happy with my haul. I didn't really hold back on any patterns that I kind of wanted. Of course, I could have easily gotten way more. Now, I will say that I started collecting vintage patterns at op shops like Vinnie's, Salvo's, you know, anything in between. And those patterns used to be 50 cents, $1 each, you know, 10 years ago when I started. However, over time, they've upped the price. I've also heard rumors that the op shops actually throw them out now, because I guess the turnover on those sorts of patterns isn't that great. They just kind of sit there for years and years. So they throw them out now. But again, post-COVID, with the whole craft craze, there's a lot more people in the community, if that's what you want to call it. I think that they should maybe not have thrown them away or not be throwing them away anymore, but who knows. All I know is that when I go to the shop, or to the op shops now, I find it extremely hard to find patterns, one that are unique, especially like the 1940s kind of ones. You do see quite a few 80s style ones, which I'll show you. You know, this is an example of an 80s style one that I have. You do see not quite a few of them, but if you're gonna see any, you're gonna see these ones, which is like fine. But all of that to say, when I see these patterns in the flesh, I just snap them up as soon as I can. Most of these patterns, some of them were $2 each, some of them were $3 or $4. So you can see that this one is $3. How stunning is that? Beautiful. But then we also have some that are $4. Where's a kind of nice $4 one to show you? I think there was one that was quite impressive, but I actually think it might be a $3 one. Anyway, but there is, like this is a $4 one. So we have like a nice vest. And then we also have a cute, it looks like actually almost a bulky, but bulky weight cardigan on the back, but it's cute. There was also some others, but you know, I'll get to showing you all of them. I'll make sure that there's some clear shots. But when I see them, I want them, I buy them. And that's how that goes. I ended up spending about, I think it was 25, 29, and then 8, which is then, let's just do 30 plus 25 is 55. minus 1 is 4 plus 8, so that's around 60. 2. We'll fact check that later. I'm totally not an engineer, or nor have I been in my past life. Anyway, that's a joke, I am. That was a bit expensive, however, if I pick all these up, this is the stack that I got. So not a bad haul. I'd also say that the presentation of these patterns has also been upped in the most recent timeline. A lot of sellers now have them wrapped in a plastic, which is fantastic. Like, the plastic's not fantastic, but in terms of preserving the pattern, especially these older ones. So for example, this one's definitely gonna sit in the 1940s range. They're old. She's 80 years old, so I think a little bit of protection goes well for her. Being wrapped in plastic is also, like, it's a pro and a con. It means that I can't flip through to see what patterns are inside, because while the patterns on the cover might not necessarily be my particular taste, there might be something like a gem inside. Obviously the covers are going to be like the most jaw-dropping usually, but sometimes there's some like unique finds inside. I found that one of the patterns I was going through, it actually had some family patterns inside. So normally if there is a woman on the front, look at that. If there is a woman on the front cover, usually aligns that the patterns are going to be women in it, or women's patterns. But I found some that actually had a variety of family patterns, so that was a nice find. Also, I just love how unique some of these are, how you can see that this is obviously a black and white picture, and they've done their old style coloring in of the garment, which is the pattern highlighting the particular feature that this thing is about. Great words. But how lovely are these? I actually wasn't too sold on this one, but when I opened it up inside and I saw the, sorry about that sound. When I opened it up inside and saw the black and white version, that it stunned me. I was like, that's so much nicer, like in my opinion. Like, look at that. How cute is she? That versus that. It's probably just because this looks, you know, unnatural. Anyway, but it was pretty good haul. I might just keep, like, you know, popping the covers up. I might not open all of them, but if there's any particular pattern that you want to see inside, let me know. I've always kind of like thought about, especially for the older patterns that are out of copy right now, to scan them in and have a site where you could download the PDF patterns, because we want to make these patterns accessible to the people. They might be rare to find physically, but the patterns are quite beautiful and unique. But yeah, I'm just gonna keep passing them up. I don't really think I need to talk much to them, but look at that, look little bubby and a little cot blanket. How cute. Then there's also this one, which is one of the larger ones. Another thing that I like is I particularly like to collect patterns, pattern and Baldwin's, patterns and Baldwin's publications. I find that they're the patterns that most suit my taste, but also they're patterns that were usually printed and produced in Australia, at least the patterns that you find in Australia. They're normally produced here, which is nice. We love, stan, but they're definitely more aligned to my personal taste. They're easy to find. We don't really see much. I think cider is like a bit more of a common European one. We don't really see that one. I'm not even sure of any American particular brands in the vintage realm, but patterns or patterns and Baldwin's, depending on when it was printed in terms of branding, they're the ones that I particularly do like to collect. Most of the patterns actually have a volume number, so you can see that this one's a bit different than the usual patterns ones, which is, it was printed like this for a very long time, but each of them has an issue number, and you can see that this is volume 14. But for example, that you can see that this one is volume 319. So is there a part of me that over my life I would like to collect the complete catalogue? Yes. Is that something I need to do? No. Is it something that my wallet needs me to do? No. But hey, we'll just let it organically happen over time. I usually have a pretty good mind on what I have in my library, shall we say, collection. My collection somewhere. But yeah, I definitely pass on some patterns though, because they just like don't hit, especially at $3 or $4 a pop. If it's something that I'm collecting just to have a number in my library, I'm not going to prioritize that over some that I particularly do like, because you know, at 62 or whatever dollars that I spent the other day for the number of patterns I got, that stacks up. Relative to the cost of modern patterns, that was very, very cheap. But in terms of this, I collect for collector's sake. I'm obviously not going to make all these garments, and I do collect them almost like as a to be a custodian, which I'll get to. There's some others that I got just to be like the custodian of the pattern and try and, you know, have it just be a thing that exists just because it's funny. So here's another one. I do have a little boy, so I'm very excited about, like little penguins or little sailboats. I don't really like zipper fronts, but you know, you can always adapt and put a button band there instead. But how cute are some of those toddler patterns? I have lots of baby patterns, but I actually don't have that many toddler ones. And now as my son heads into that range, I definitely need to get some more of those. But here's some more, you know, boys and girls toddler patterns. How cute. It's so funny when they used to color in black and white pictures, isn't it? Isn't that funny? Like how cute. How cute. Another thing, can I just say, look at that waist. I think something that we don't maybe talk or appreciate enough when it comes to vintage knitting is, of course, yes, sizing, inclusivity, it's a whole shebang. However, she's wearing a girdle or a corset or something. It's really the 1960s when we moved into the shift dress. Again, like, you know, it goes through cycles over time. But when we moved into the 1960s is when we kind of start to see the reduction of the use of girdles and corsets and things like that. Also with more popularity of spandex, you know, elastic, lycra, that type of stuff, there were alternatives to very stiff undergarments. However, you can see, like, look, come on, her waist doesn't naturally look like that, and it's something that I don't think we quite appreciate when we see some of these patterns and we're like, oh my goodness, she's so gorgeous, like look how shapely she is. You know, but you know, even here, like that's pulling up this example again. She obviously has undergarments that is supporting that look, because we can often knit something like this and be disappointed that it looks very square. It's about the undergarments. Anyway, that was just a little note, a little personal note on my personal opinions about that. If you're gonna do vintage knitting and you want that look, that's a look, it's an aesthetic. If you wanna lean into that, you're gonna need shapewear underneath. Obviously you don't have to, you can totally adapt the patterns. You can wear them in a modern take, why not? But I just think in terms of, even I sometimes make patterns and I'm similar sizing, I'm pretty close to the standard sizing usually presented in these patterns, which is around a 34 bust. But if I don't wear shapewear underneath, I don't get that, you know, the new look, which is something that I'm attracted to. It's something that I like. We're all about to like things that we like. But yeah, anyway, sorry, let me keep going. That was a little tangent. Shapewear's a thing. It affects the way that your look is presented. If you don't like the way that some of your vintage knitting turns out, perhaps shapewear is something that you could try. It works for me, might for you, might not. Anyway, I also found this one. How cute is it? So it's patterns, so I had to get it. And it's one of these, like, anytime that there's kind of a quirky one or a different type of one, wait, no. I don't think that I even realized this is volume number 1. But do you think it's Patterns TV knitting book number 1? Or do you think it's Patterns number 1? That might be number 1. It can't be number 1. It has to be just TV version number. Patterns knitting book number TV 1. Yeah, there we go. There's some validation in there. All right. We were stunned for a second there. We were stunned, but alas, I don't know, maybe I need to do a proper Google on it. Anyway, all right, let's head into some, oh, we got some more taller patterns. This is when we're getting into our kind of like, you know, 80s retro type era. But look at that. What a cutie. A little goanna. Love it. I also found this ABC Kids Knitting Patterns book. It was $8, which is a bit expensive. It was the most expensive out of all the ones that I got at the show. But it has, I will show you inside some of these ones, just the pictures. But it has some patterns of your favorite, you know, Australian ABC kids shows. So like, look, it's Spot. We got Spot. There was, oh wait, I have to, like, you know, we got Blinky Bill, cute. We got Bananas in Pajamas, a must. And I'll show you one. Where is he? Where is he? There he is. It's Pingu. I think I need to make Pingu. I don't have red or orange yarn, but I have black, yellow, and white. I can get the others. I think I have to make this. It's Pingu. How cute. And then there's also some basic, I think they're all drop shoulder sweater patterns with either crew, V-neck. I think they had one of the cow neck ones as well. But there's a lot of options. This is a treasure. I love it. I did see it on Facebook Marketplace just like a day or two before I found this at the the Destash fair. And it was $18 plus postage from Adelaide. And I was like, I want this, but I don't want this that much. So then when I saw it for $8 in the box, I was like, gimme, 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 gimme. And I got it. It was great. It was great. And then we have two other ones, which it's more probably just like my family joke type things. These are patterns as well. So I was like stunned. But we have Yogi Bear and Popeye. Like, what a moment in time. And then if we look at the Yogi Bear ones, look at that. There are a lot. I know that there are a lot, but this is kind of what I was saying earlier, where these particular patterns, I actually left them in the box while we went back and went around the market. And then at the end, I was like to Emma, Emma, I have to go back for Yogi Bear. If Yogi Bear is still there, I have to go back. And Yogi Bear was still there. So I went back. It's, again, basic sweaters. We've got the charts. I'll just like cover that a little bit, but you know, you got the charts. And look at that. There's a bit of a colouring in on the back for the kiddo. How cute. I just thought they were so unique. We don't see many of them. There was a Betty Boop, but Betty Boop, that's not really in my like family cultural zeitgeist. Not as much as Yogi Bear or Popeye. So I just stuck to Yogi Bear and Popeye because I need not be collecting more than I need. But I am happy to be the custodian of these patterns so that they end up somewhere. If it's in my knitting museum one day, so be it. So back to the Destash fair and how it was set out. It was crammed. It was so crammed. It was ridiculous in there. It was so hot. There was no air conditioning. All the doors were open. All the windows were open. As many fans as they had, which were not many, they had them going. Not only was the hall, the actual town hall area, chock-a-block full of stall holders, the stage was full of stall holders. The side rooms, like the, not the kitchenette, but like, you know how like that sometimes like there's like a little, I don't even know what to call it, but there were some little side rooms, at least 2 or even 3. It was crazy. There was also a lot of embroidery, transfers, embroidery threads. There was lots of vintage patterns, but like some of them were cute, but like it was like $18 a pop. And I was like, $18 for like a pattern that's falling apart. Like, I don't know. I don't feel the need to be custodian of vintage sewing patterns as much as I do knitting patterns, because I find that knitting patterns are a bit more harder to come by, but I like the imagery and just like they're frozen in time. Or at least it feels like to me they're frozen in time just that little bit more. Whereas when it comes to sewing patterns, it's like, you know, they just reissue the same pajama pattern every other time, or it's a circle skirt with a petticoat and a, you know, you either have a princess seam bodice, you either have a normal dart bodice, you have an asymmetric, like there are only, it's not that there's only so many patterns that you can have, but there's so many patterns that aren't different enough from what you usually have in your stash, such as these boxes here, these are all my sewing patterns are at, that they aren't different enough, or by the time that you start collecting and making enough of those patterns, you basically generate your own, you know, pattern blocks. And from that, you already have enough experience to kind of take a beautiful picture and kind of assume and make some guesses, best guesses about how it was constructed, to get a similar look. So at $18 a pop with my experience, and what I was looking for, I was like, damn, this is too expensive for a sewing pattern, $18. Because let's be real, even though it's full price, like $18, $20 for sewing patterns, like at Spotlight or whatever, girl, we're waiting for the sales. If we're paying more than $6 a pattern, you're paying too much. But anyway, again, the labor of getting there, setting up the stall. I know the sewing patterns are usually, it's almost like you're paying for a verification cost. So usually the stall holders have opened it up and ensured that the all the pattern pieces are there, which is not guaranteed with vintage patterns. And some of them even did have on the envelopes, not the envelopes, the plastic sleeves that the sewing pattern envelopes were in, they had on them that either all the pieces were there or it nominated that what particular piece might be missing. So you can clearly see that they're verified, and that's obviously why that they're a bit more expensive, because the time and labor involved in that, which is like fine, but like I just, not my thing. A lot of the fabrics were like definitely fabrics that you probably already have in your stash that you don't want. So it was a bit, I don't really need that. At least for the modern-ish fabrics. The vintage fabrics were cute, but unless you had a particular purpose, it was just something that you would also at home, take home, put in the box, and when would you use it? It's too precious to use, the pressure to use it, so that wasn't my vibe. I think that's really it to say. It was hot, crowded, surprisingly crowded. Next time, probably get there a little bit earlier. It was fun. It was fun. I definitely need to get better at vlogging. It's a bit embarrassing, but we'll get there. After Emma and I packed up from the Destash Fair, we got back on the train, we went to Newtown with the plans to go to the button shop, but it was Sunday and it was closed and I forgot. I completely did not even think. I was like, I know that it's closed on a Sunday. I didn't even think, but it was closed. So that was a bit disappointing. However, the fabric store, it recently moved, you know, in the last year or so, from Surrey Hills, I believe that's where it was. Yeah, Surrey Hills, to across the road from the button store. So that was great to pop in there. And I got some Liberty cotton poplin that I've been having my eye on lately. They had some really nice blue Liberty cotton prints lately. I've just been trying to like hone in on the one that's probably best going to suit me. Just because I like a print doesn't mean that when I make it up into a dress, it is going to be all that flattering. So I spent a very too long a time deciding what I actually wanted to pick. So Emma did, actually I'll show you, hold on. So this was the fabric that I ended up going with. Oh, and then this is something I already had. I just bought it from Spotlight. But this is the pattern that I plan to make. I'm probably gonna do the square neck, lower it. Probably do the tier, but on this version. I don't really like that. It's too high neckline anyway, but I don't really like the love heart. I definitely like a square neck. I probably do the bow as well. I like the bow. But that's just the vibes with this one. There you go. All in all, if there's a Destash Market in your area, definitely check it out. Probably get there early, definitely bring more cash than what we did or what a lot of other people did. Another thing that I didn't say is you gotta kind of be prepared to kind of like mark your territory. If you're looking in a pattern box or a knitting box, you're probably not the only one who wants to be looking in that box at that point in time, especially if you like collecting. So I definitely picked up a few, which I'll just say it was disappointing to someone else who wanted to check out the patterns when I was there as well. But hey, that's the free market for you. So definitely go to a Destash market. It was fun. Definitely take a buddy. It was fun. If you've been to one before in your city, I'd love to know what you picked up, where it was, how it went. Was there any drama? Was there any tea? I think the tea just was, it was flaming hot. Probably could have used a bigger venue. But you know, these things, you got to appreciate them when they're on. Of course, they take time and effort to set up, and hopefully with its success, it just grows and grows, and it just becomes a better event. It was great to talk to you. Okay, thanks, bye.